Hello and welcome to Hixxy Studio. Today I'm going to be showing you how to make this lovely village church card. Got a whole load of lovely goodies to play with. The stamp, the main image itself, is Crafter's Companion. It's a Lee Holland design stamp. We've got this gorgeous Stamperia stencil, which I've used for the Mr. and Mrs. on the sentiment. And for colouring, we're going all sparkly. I don't know if you can catch that on the camera. Gone all sparkly with, we've got lovely Cosmic Shimmer watercolour inks. And I'm using today the Fiery Sunset, the Turquoise Cascade, the Golden Sunrise and Holly Green. And also because I want some darker greens and browns, I've got a range of a little mini distress ink. So black soot, walnut stain, brush corduroy, what's corduroy? Corduroy, try that one. Hickory smoke, pumice stone, forest moss, and mowed lawn. And that should give you everything you need. Now, if you don't have those exact colours, it doesn't matter. You can layer up the inks more, make things darker with just a little bit of brown. But as I've got a whole load of colours, I will be using them. Okay. I'm also, this background here, I'm going to use the Holly Green and also a little bit of the Cosmic Shimmer Pixie Sparkle highlights in Frozen Pearl. Okay. And finally, the last thing, probably isn't the last thing for now, I'm stamping the image with the Finesse waterproof die, and I'm using Flagstone because it's I didn't want a stark black stamp. I wanted a slightly sort of grayer, and it's waterproof, which means when I put my watercolors over the top, the ink is not going to run. So we are going to start by making the green background for these parts here. So I'm going to use watercolor card today. Find my watercolor card. So I have a piece of watercolor card, and I am going to use our lovely ink here. And I don't know if you can hear the ball bearing going. That will have activated the lovely pearlescence in this ink. And I need a lovely big brush and a bit of water. And we are going to make just a lovely wash. So I'm going to put a little bit of water on the card first, not a lot, just to make it slightly damp so that the ink will move a little bit better. I've just got something in my brush there to work a few little fluffy bits. And then I'm going to I'm not going to drop it straight onto the card. I'm going to put a little bit into a container here, and hopefully you can see that beautiful pearlescence in there. I'm putting it in there partly because it's easier than to apply, but also because I'm going to want some of it when I'm doing the colouring in a bit. So I'm just going to pick that up. And as you see, this is already wet. Now this, because I'm making it quite, oops, it's going all over the place. Because I'm making it quite damp, some of the pearlescence does go, but not completely. Need more. Trying to be frugal, but hey ho. Use a bit more later. So because sometimes when you water things down, the shimmer does go a little bit. That's why I'm adding some of the Frozen Pearl highlights. So we are literally going to just put those on. Now, it is already damp and this will start to activate, but I am going to need to spray it so that it completely adheres. So let's get more spray bottle. This does then make this card quite wet. I mean, it's watercolor card. It is designed to get wet, but even so, it's going to need a bit of time to dry. And I think I might want a bit more Pixie Sparkles on there. Okay. So that needs to now go aside to dry. It's very, very wet, so I'm going to lift it carefully and move it over onto my sheet here, and I'm going to grab a piece of rice paper, just mop up that in there and clean it. Choo! Okie dokie. So that's the first stage, and that is now going to be drying while we get on with some of the rest of it. Okay, so the next thing we need to do is we need to stamp our image. So let's move those out of the way for the moment. We're going to get our stamping platform out. Here we go. And mine is quite mucky. I do apologise, but most of it is permanent ink that won't come off, so it's not going to affect anything. Now, this stamp is a solid stamp. It's all in one. So the clouds are all part of this back plate. So just be careful as you're taking it off, because it is quite easy to stretch them. If you can, try and pull the acetate away from the stamp rather than the stamp away from the acetate. It's a very, very clingy one. Just be careful as you pull it. Okay, you can see mine's already got ink all over it from where I've been doing prep. You can see it does pull the stamp a bit, but there we go. So one big solid stamp, and I'm going to again do this on watercolour card because I'm going to do a little bit of a wash for the sky with a bit of masking. So we're going to put our piece of card in. Ugh, it's so sticky. And I'm going to decide where I want my stamp. I'm putting it in the middle because when I paint in a moment, I'm going to want to mask those edges off so we get a nice clean line. So to stick. Okay, and then we're going to use our Finesse waterproof die, and we're going to lots of light tapping. And you can see where I've been a bit heavy-handed and gone in here on the stamp, but it hasn't affected it when it actually stamps out. Okay, remember the great thing about a stamp press, and I've never really enjoyed stamping before we got stamp presses because I could never get a clean image. But you know that with a stamp press, I'm just going to move out the way. If you haven't got it to stamp completely first time, you can go back over it. I'm just kind of rubbing the heel of my hand all the way over, and then now I'm going to have another go here. Two things. One, I probably didn't press hard enough, always in the middle. I don't press hard enough. But two, this is watercolour card, so there will be, because there's a little bit more of a texture, it doesn't always take completely. You get that little bit of bubbling, but we're going to have another go at that bit. I got it's a bit of the tree, a bit of the church roof. So we'll go back in, have another go. Concentrate on that middle bit this time. No, I think it's me and my. There we go. That's better. Right, okay, so I'm going to take this out of our stamp press. I am going to take this off, put it back on my sheet here. Put that out of the way for the moment. And then our press goes down. Now, there's two things I'm going to do here. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my low tack tape, and I'm going to create a border. And also what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the lid on that before I put my hand in it. Okay, so I'm going to, how far did I go? Roughly there. So what this will do is this will provide a nice clean edge to my image when I've painted it. So another piece across the bottom. Now the bottom and the sides are a little bit easier because you can see where the stamped image stops. I've done the two, top and bottom, and I just longer piece, probably not quite that long, but not to worry. And this piece, all stuck up, is going to go here, and then another long piece to go down this side. And this just will give us a nice little edge on our image. And it will also allow me to stick that down. Okay, now the other thing that I want to do is my crafting journey, I suppose, if you like, started many years ago doing watercolors, and I just love watercoloring. And I love doing like washes for skies, but excuse me, just got on there. So what I've done is I've used a masking sheet. So I've printed this onto the masking sheet and cut it out. Now it is a little bit fiddly and faffy, but you only ever need to do it once, and then every time you use the stamp again, you've got it. And you can see it's already got a blue. This is where I did the wash before. So I'm going to peel it off very carefully. There's some lovely little bit up here, particularly with the tree. To be very careful. She says not being very careful. We'll go that way with the tree. Hopefully this will come off now. This stuff is lovely and sticky, as you can see. Okay, here we go. Right, so what I did when I did it before is I first of all lined up the church spire. Okay. Now, if you don't get it exact, it doesn't matter too much. It's more the fact that you are protecting the bulk of it. It does need to go down a bit. Protecting the bulk of it from becoming blue when you have a go at doing the sky with a wash. Okay. Goes up there. Got our little tree here. There we go. There's our tree done. Roof there in the bush. Excellent. And then our little clouds. Again, be very careful with these. These are quite little and delicate, but mine have been used a couple of times, so you can see they do hold together, even though the fact that they are going to have water and wet watercolour put straight across them. And then there's my little one there. There we go. Oh, not quite. Ah, there we go. Right, so I am now all prepared for doing the wash for the sky. So if I bring this one in, so this is this wash here. And I like to use a wet on wet technique for skies. And we're going to use the Turquoise Cascade pearlescent watercolour ink. So I'm going to put a little bit of this into my container, and I'm going to get my water back and my big brush. And the first thing I'm going to do is I am literally going to go over it just with water. Clean water would be preferable, but this isn't too, it's not too, if it was red I might decide to get some clean, but this is a greeny colour. So I am literally going to go across with water. And what this does is it means when I do the this ink, we can grade it down from the top. I'm just going to get a little bit of ink on and then start from the top and then slowly bring it down. And it comes down into here, those bits that you could probably do if you're a patient person, but I tend to fibre off my brush there. Find it easier to do it this way. Now I'm also going to get a piece of kitchen towel. We do have some clouds there, but you can create more texture in your sky just by dabbing a little bit off while it's still wet, and that gives you a much more sort of natural looking sky. So let's put the brush in there and rinse it. Let's just clean that little bit off there. Okay, so one side for a sec. I am going to just give it a quick blast with the heat gun. Not lots, but just to dry it off before I take the masks off. Okay. Right, so put this up on the bottom. Okay, so you can see a little bit of a bleed under, but nowhere near as much as if you were trying, well, personally, as if I was trying to get in between the bits. I'm going to get my pokey tool, just get under these little ones, pull them off, one cloud, and then my other cloud. Let's get rid of that bit of acetate as well, because it'll be shining away. Okay, so there we have the first stage. Okay, now that little bit up, otherwise I'm going to be contaminating everything. Now, you see, the best way to approach this is in stages. If you try to do things that are next to each other when they're wet, things will bleed. If you try and put things over when they're too wet, they'll bleed. So I tend to focus on one area and then go on to another area that's not sort of linked to it. So I'm going to start with the tree. So I want to use the lovely holly green ink, but I also, you can see here I used it with mowed lawn, and here I used it with forest moss to give it a little bit of a different effect. So I always use a white tile, and what I am going to do, I'm just going to move this slightly across so I've got room for my tile here. Okay, so I am going to we're going to start with mowed lawn on this one, and I'm going to put a little bit of the mowed lawn there. Okay, and I'm going to get my smaller brushes out because I don't want such a lot of application there. Okay, so I'm going to pick up some of this, to stir it up to reactivate the pearlescence, and I'm going to put it on here, and I'm going to get it quite wet, and I am literally going to go over all of the tree. Sorry, I went a bit quiet there. I have a tendency to do that when I'm painting. So yeah, so I'm just literally, it's almost, if any of you are alcohol marker, sort of, that's how you do your colouring. I tend to use a similar technique to the one I use with those, in that I put on a light base and then I start to build it up. So I'm going to bring in a little bit of the mowed lawn and just start to add. I'll be coming back to it because it won't pick up all of the changing colour on this particular run through because it's still a bit wet. What I'm looking for, you can see these little black bits, so they will be over the top of something else. So what you're trying to do is just add a little bit of shadow underneath each of those. Okay, now, you know, if you are not into fiddling and faffing with your colour, then there is absolutely nothing wrong with just sort of giving it a little bit of a splidgy splodge. But we will come back to that and add some more later to add a little bit more definition in. So that's that bit there. Now that's not touching anything else at the moment. So I'm going to have a look at these bush areas here because we've got the green out. We'll keep going with the green, but this time I want some forest moss. Some forest moss on my thing. And I'm going to do the same. I'm going to take some of the holly green fluorescent ink, and I am going to go over it to begin with, just to give it a nice light sparkly base. And you don't need to worry, because we've taped off the sides, you don't need to worry about whether you're going over or not, because it's taped off, and all you'll be going over is onto the tape and not onto the rest of the card. Okay, so now I'm going to add in some of the forest moss, and again I'm going to start just to add a little bit of shade and depth. Now it's not so straightforward, this one. There's not so much indication of where put shade and light. So for the moment, I'm just going to give it a little bit of a dib and a dab. And the same over here. And we will come back to that in a bit when that's had a chance to dry. But by adding in the different distress inks, we've now got a different shade of our green. Okay. So the next thing I'm going to do is path, because again, that's not connected to anything. So I am going to take my brush corduroy, and I'm also going to use my walnut stain. So I'm going to just put them both on. So that's my brush corduroy, that's my lighter brown, and then my walnut stain, sorry, is my darker. Now, neither of these have any sparkle in them, because they are just distressing. So what I am going to do is I'm just going to put a little puff of frozen pearl on top of each one, and that will make them nice and sparkly to go with the rest of the painting. Okay, so I'm just going to wash my brush. Bear with me, I'm just going to get my really dirty cloth to clean it off. Okay, so again, I want water. I'm making this white light, and I am going to add a little bit of the gathered twigs. It isn't gathered twigs, it's walnut stain. I'm going to add a little bit in there just to make that a bit of a, there you go, a bit less orangey, and I'm going to make it a little bit more watery. There we go. Okay, now the thing again with watercolours is that generally, and there's not too much perspective here because it's all fairly close, but generally when you are doing watercolour, you're looking at darker sort of towards the forefront where it is clearer, but also warmer, cooler colours towards the back, and lighter colours towards warmer colours towards the front. So I've given that to start with a bit of a coat, and because it's wet and I can just start to get some of the shading in on the side to give that a little bit of definition. And it feels a bit dry, just get some more water on your brush. Thing with watercolour, if you put too much water on, you can always dab it with a piece of paper towel just to take the water off. I have gone over a little bit there onto my grass, but I am pretty sure we will be okay with that. Okay. Now the other thing I'm going to do is also just give all of these a little bit of a, going over with the walnut stain again to give them a little bit of a different colour, and we will come back to add in a little bit more definition a bit later when that is completely dry. The thing with watercolour is it will to an extent keep moving once you put water back on, but I do like to, if I'm doing blending, I do like to try and get it right at the time. So I'll put quite a bit of water back there. Okay, so I'll start here. Now, this is pretty much dry, so I am now going to do, because I'm dealing with the browns, I am going to do the tree trunk, and I'm going to go in and use the walnut stain pretty much on its own. here to give a different brown. Okay. And again, this is first go over, and we will come back and add some more definition. Okay, so now we're going to look at the church. So we need to look at our greys. And our greys, again, don't have, I'm just going to wipe that off, give myself a bit more room. The greys, again, don't have any sparkle in them. So I will be adding a bit of the frozen pearl highlights onto them, just so that we keep, no, did I do that one? No, I did. Oh no, I did do that one. That's hickory smoke again. Have a little bit of pumice stone instead. Now you can see these are both grey, but you can see this is much more of a blue grey. This is much more of a greeny grey. But between them, you can get all sorts of lovely shades going on. So let's put some frozen pearl into those. We're getting nice and sparkly. There we go. Right, so again, first thing I'm going to do with the church is I'm going to give it a really fairly dilute coat with the hickory smoke. And I do want a lot more water than that. I want it nice and light. So I'm going to leave the doors, because the doors I'm going to go over with the pumice stone. But for the rest, I am going to use the grey. Now, the other thing that I was always taught is try to move your brush in the direction of whatever it is. So this is a horizontal piece. So you would use your brush horizontally here. It's not always possible, but where you can, try to have your brush going in the direction that whatever it is you're looking at is going. So if you've got like a round thing, your brush should be going round. If it's very vertical, your brush should be going up and down. It's like if you were colouring with colouring pencils, you tend to go in the direction, because otherwise you get funny sort of lines in the wrong sort of places. Okay, so here we go. So I'm just going to, while that's still wet, I'm just going to start adding in a little bit of black soot, and I'm going to add in a little bit of shadow on this side, and also under here. And again, this is like a first go. We'll undoubtedly go back in later to add some more. Adding sort of shadow gives your painting more definition, not just looking flat. And if you're if your medium is alcohol pens, you can do it with your alcohol pens too, or pencils, whatever it is that you like to colour with. This stamp will work. It's such a lovely open stamp. So again, I'm going to go across on the roof there. Again, just a little bit of a wash with just the hickory smoke. Blah, 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 blah. Goodness me, just the hickory smoke to begin with. Now, this wall here is behind this one. So you would definitely have some shadow here from that front wall. And again, so I'm bringing my brush across, and then a little bit of the hickory smoke to pull it out further. Or if it's still too dark, you can always put a little bit of just water on to make that a bit lighter. So you're always looking for where will the shadows be. They'll be under things. If something's behind, they'll be there. And that just gives a little bit more of a definition onto your project. So again, let's go and do hickory smoke on here. And again, this building is behind, so under the roof line. and where that wall is behind. Okay, and also there on the roof, and here on the roof too. A little bit in there. Okay, and here on the, so I'm going back over now. It's starting to dry here, so I can start to layer in the colour a little bit more. This is where I end up for too long. But I won't faff today. I will make a decision and say we'll go with it. So I do want to do a little bit of kind of shadow underneath each of these layers here, just to make them look a little bit more 3D. Okay, so right now I am going to go back. I'm going to do the grass now, because these bits are pretty much dry, so hopefully nothing will bleed. And again, I'm going to start with our lovely holly green pearlescent ink with a bit of water. And I'm going to go over all of this. And again, don't worry, you've got that the edge of the tape. It doesn't matter if you head on over. Fine. Okay, so we're putting our ink on, and then I'm going to go, I think, with some of the mowed lawn over the top of this for the definition. So I'm going to make kind of a line here where that joins, and also down the side where it meets the path. Shadow on there, and same here, here where it meets. And because I put the watercolour ink on quite wet, means I've got plenty of movability here as I'm adding the mowed lawn on. I might even put a bit of forest moss in there as well, just to darken it. Oh, it was too dark. Not to worry, we can deal with that, just in those bits there. A little bit more, oh, pick any there up here. As you can see, this is where I do just start faffing, and we'll do a little bit here, we'll do a little bit there. Right, now while I'm back with the green, I'm going to go back up to the tree, and I am going to add in a bit more definition. And I'm just going to use the mowed lawn to add in some darker areas, just to make it more 3D. Oh, it's so sparkly. Struggling to see where I've been. Ooh, sparkle, sparkle. Is giving our tree more definition. And you can see I'm not being exact. I'm not being precise. I am going to just make that bit there darker, because this part of the tree is in front of that. That one's behind. I'm going to, if I can get enough on there, make that bit darker so you can see. And we have another bit here, this bit here, this bit's in front of this bit, and again here. It just makes the tree look a little bit more 3D, a little bit more realistic. So, and then I'm also going to now go back to my the bushes and add in a little bit more of the forest moss to make them a little bit darker in places. Again, it doesn't need to be, this doesn't need to be particularly accurate. Well, I don't think I ever put any on over there. Doesn't look like I did over there. Oh, not to worry. Not to worry. So, what do we have left to do? Right, we have the clouds, and we have the doors and the windows. Or when I want to go back over the path, I'm just literally, I'm faffing. I am faffing. I know I'm faffing. I'm going to go back, just add a little bit more to the path. A little bit more. Adding that on, and I'm going to get a bit of water on my brush in a minute, just to move that. Such a harsh line. hopefully you're getting the idea. I am going to move on to the door. So the door, I am going to use whatever I've got there, which I think is walnut stain. Again, I'm putting that on first layer. I'm going to clean my brush. I'm going to get some pumice stone, which is this one. Need a bit of water. That one's dried out a little bit. And we're going to use that for our little bits in here. This gives it a different colour. Okay, and then I am going to use, and I know it's not a lot, but I am going to just use a little bit of the Fiery Sunset and the Fiery Sunset and the Golden Sunrise. Ooh, all things to do with the sun. I'm going to put one little drop because I don't need a lot, and one little drop of yay. That's so small speed, and one drop of that purely so that we can do the stained glass. And I'm going to need a very fine brush. This one will do. And I'm going to just take the yellow and you do need a little brush. I'm not even going to attempt for this to be blended. I am just going to add little bits, and I'm going to add some red. Whoa, okay, I'll deal with that in a moment. No bother, no panic. Don't panic, Mr. Mannering. Okie dokie, and then we'll add a little bit of blue into our stained glass window. Blue up there, blue down there, and our lovely holly green. Oh, and you can see I put a little bit too much on and it's bleeding, but I'm not too bothered about that. What I will do is I'm going to go back over here and a bit of blends that out, and we'll have a little bit more. It looks the same. Oh, there we go. Okay, and the last thing I'm going to do is to just add a little bit of dimension to the clouds. So I'm going to use hickory smoke with a clean brush, not with a green brush, a clean brush. I am literally just going to a little bit, just again to give them a little bit of definition. Okay. And at home you can take a bit more time over this. And if like me you've got the blue, you can blend that in with your grey on your clouds. There we go. Okie dokie. So we're going to leave that there, otherwise I would just sit and faff around with that for ages. So we're going to leave it there. And I am going to give it a blast with my heat gun. I'm just going to move all of these out of the way first. Otherwise I'm going to end up putting elbows and all sorts in. So I am just going to give it a blast. At home you would make sure that it's completely dry before you do anything else with it. But we will just push on. Now you can see as it's drying, it's coming up this way. Really, when you do watercolouring, you should really make one side wet and then the other, and it does keep it from buckling. But if we just go back the other side, we can dry it from the other side, and it will help flatten it out. Okay, I think that'll do. Right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove my tape. And you can see that we have a nice line. Oh, that one's underneath that one. Pull that one off. Okay. It's a little bit fuzzy, but I don't mind that. And actually I am going to make another border anyway. So I am going to use a fine liner pen to draw. And I'm going to draw, you can see on here, I drew a line to define the edge of the picture. So just make sure my ruler is clean. I'm going to do the same here. So I'm going to put my ruler down, and it doesn't matter how far up or down we go because we're gonna cut this off. Okay, so I am going to go there on that side. I'm going to go here. I am going to go. And if you've got like a blurred edge like this, kind of go in the middle of it, then distract the eye from it, and then across the top. Okay, and I am then with my guillotine going to trim that, and depends on the guillotine you use. Ooh, hopefully that's not wet paint, but I tend to use things like the edge of this, or certain lines on there to make my decisions as to where I'm going to cut. So I'm going to put this on, and I am going to use this guide bar and line it up with my drawn line. Okay, and then so I've cut just a little bit outside, but then I know when I come turn it round, I'm going to do the same thing. Okay, now I've not drawn a straight line because that's not lined up, but not to worry, we will persevere. That one there, same on here, lining up my drawn line with that. Look, and then again on this final side. There we go. You can see that's why I said it doesn't matter that you have continued to draw off. So there's our image ready. I've got the mats and layers done, I think. I'll check in my box in a moment. But we need the sentiments. So this is using the Mr. and Mrs. stencil. Bring that in. I've got my mats and layers there. Need the green bit, don't we? We'll do that in a moment. Have a piece of that already prepared because the other one is still wet. That leave for that in a moment. So there's my base card. Okay, so this is going to be for my sentiment. Oops, move that out of the way. So brush this out of the way. I am going to I'm going to, again, give myself a little bit. In fact, I'm going to do it this way. I'm going to give myself a fair bit of room around where I am going to ink through. I'm going to ink through with black soot. So I want, again, and I'm going to, hoping these aren't too wet, use some of these again. Right. Okay, I'm going to put a piece of tape down there to stop me inking off over the edge. I'm going to put a piece across here to stop me inking through that rose. That is a bit wet, but it's not going to be an issue, I don't think. And then I am going to do the same here so that I don't go through that forever. And a lovely long bit, we'll cut that in half a little bit. And again, on this bit here so that I don't end up inking through there. So I am going to get my inking brush. I think I need an inking brush. Bear with me a moment. There we go. We'll use this one. And I am going to, excuse me, use black soot. I can get in it. Here we go. So it's a little bit on, and I'm kind of just gonna, I don't want to scrub, but I want to make sure I'm getting enough ink through. Okay, so I'm putting a little bit on and then just wiping it. You can see I'm not pressing hard. You should be able to see when you have done enough, with however dark you want it on each bit. Okay, keep going. It's nice and lightly. Hopefully I haven't smudged it through. You can see here I've prevented myself from going off onto the card there. And I'm sorry, my hair is getting in the way. Just very lightly making sure I've got everything in. Okay, so lid on that, brush away. And then I'm going to, I can't remember which way around I did them. That bit first, didn't I? So let's get rid of that. Oh, that's going to come with it. There. This bit across here. Comes off. And then you can just check. I've left this one on and it can act like a hinge. So that if I then decide, oh, that's not right, I can put it back. But no, that looks pretty good. So then I can pull that off. Okay, so I'm going to give that a little bit of a blast with heat gun. Okay, right now, and I'm going to do the same as I did for here and create a border so that it all looks nice and even. So all I'm doing is fairly arbitrary. I'm just using my ruler. I'm just using the bottom of the little purple lines and kind of lining that up with the text, sort of, and using that as kind of like an arbitrary line. And then I'm just going to draw out past where you are going to want it. Same on this here, there, and again here, and again on here. Oh, that's okay. And again, just like before, I'm going to cut that by lining it up with this part of my guillotine. We get roughly the same amount of border. Okay, sorry, I've gone quiet again. Just line it up. And the last bit here. Oh, I'm going to need that. Just put it up there for a moment. Rid of our little scrap pieces. So we have our image. We have our Mr. and Mrs. We have our piece of green card that we're going to use for our backing. Now I have already gone ahead and created the bits for here, and I used a similar method. I used my fine liner pen, but also I used my scoreboard to just make some lines, just to give it a little bit of texture, rather than just being plain. So I'm going to need a piece of green to go in there and a piece of green to go in there. And I'm going to need a piece of black for this little guy. So I'm going to use my normal eyeballing method. I image down and mark it with a pencil. Again, if you are the sort of person that prefers to measure, then you know, by all means do. I tend to just eyeball it. So I always have. I think sometimes if I try to be accurate and measure things, I end up measuring it wrong and it all goes wrong. Put that there for a moment. So, okay, so there is my image. So let's get our glue and it's not going to come out. Excuse me for a moment. There we go. The little blockages come out. There we go. And some glue on the back of this. Now it is a little buckled. At home, if you have the time, what I tend to do when things while they're not, before they are completely dry, while there's still a little bit of slight dampness to them, I put them through under all my boxes with the heavy card in, and then it flattens it, and then as it finishes drying out, then your piece of card will become dry. Okay, there's our image. I need a piece for our little sentiment. Again, I'm just going to eyeball that. I reckon we can go with the width. We'll just chop a little bit off of that. Ooh, lid on there, otherwise it's not going to. Okay, so this is for our sentiment. There we go. That one on there. Ugh, now take the lid off. Otherwise it won't come out. There we go. That's our sentiment. There. Oh, what now? What else? Oh, we need our this is our holly green pearlescent ink with our lovely frozen pearl Hixxy sparkle highlights. And again, as you can see, I'm doing my normal eyeball in it. This is what I usually end up doing at home as well. I end up with 6 million things and I'm leaning over to do my cutting. Oh, come on. There we go. A little bit. Oh, go in. There we go. A bit more there. So that bit's for there. And then we need a little bit more for here. So, ooh, come on. There we go. Now, always make sure you're looking at your card, because what I don't want is that. So I need to make sure I am definitely using that edge. And again, we're going to eyeball that. That way first, I think, this time. Oh, I think. There we go. And that. Let's push it up to the top here. So this is on that straight edge, and that helps to make sure that you get a straight edge when you are cutting. Right, I think that's all the cutting done. Okay, let's stick these together. Piece there, and this piece that I've already prepared. Yeah, the white card is just plain white stamping card. Nothing fancy, just gives it a little bit of a pop rather than all just green. Okay. The sort of thing, if you keep your offcuts in a box, it comes in useful for those things and for sentiments and or little die cuts. So, I mean, there is a limit. You have to kind of decide how small is too small. But I think all of us will have a box of offcuts of card and paper, etc. So here's that one. So here's my base card, which now has ink on it. Not to worry. Not to worry. We have this one, which is going to go right up from the top to the bottom of the card. so it fits. I'm gonna put it a little bit further over than I did last time. It literally fits top to bottom. So this is basically an A4 sheet scored in half, so A5 size card. And then this one is going to go across. So I am going to use, because you can see there's a little bit of depth there, I am going to use a little bit of glue gel. Doesn't need to be a lot, but it does then allow it to have that height rather than bending it over. There we go. So that one goes there. I'm probably a bit too low, but we'll go with that. Okay. And then our gorgeous village church stamp from Lee Holland, Crafter's Companion, is going on with lots of lovely shimmer from the pearlescent inks and also the Pixie Sparkle that I put in. So we're going to put, we need to make sure I've got room for the sentiment. We're going to put that there. And then our Mr. and Mrs. is going to go here. A bit more of our glue gel. There we go. We can go across there. And of course, wouldn't be one of my cards without a good old big fussy ribbon to finish it off. And there we go. So there we have it. I think I've got a slightly different positioning on this one. Not too dissimilar. There we go. So beautiful, beautiful stamp. Really versatile. I've used it with the Mr. and Mrs. So it could be for a wedding, but equally it could be for a christening, a baptism. It could be for, well, just for a birthday. I mean, it is a beautiful stamp. It's a beautiful stamp to colour, whatever your colouring medium is. So hopefully I've given you a few ideas for that one. Thank you for joining me.